The Pie That Molly Grew by Sue Heavenrich with pictures by Chasmisa Kellogg. Chamisa Kellogg. Ooh, look at all the seeds. To my wonderful pie-loving family and for Mom and Dad, my two favorite gardeners, the pie that Molly grew. This is the seed that Molly sowed. Do you see how she's sowing it in her pot? This is the sprout that pushed through the earth to grow from the seed that Molly sowed. These are the roots that reach down and branch out to anchor the plant that began as a sprout, to grow from the seed that Molly sowed. These are the leaves as big as your head, turning sunlight to food wherever they spread, to store in the roots that reach down and branch out to anchor the plant that began as a sprout, to grow from the seed that Molly sowed. This is the vine that rambles and grows, a spiky green lifeline through which water flows, from the roots to the leaves as big as your head, turning sunlight to food wherever they spread. Then back to the roots that reach down and branch out to anchor the plant that began as a sprout, to grow from the seed that Molly sowed. These are the blossoms, yellow and bold, producers of pollen more precious than gold. They bloom on the vine that never stops growing, a spiky green lifeline that keeps water flowing, from the roots to the leaves as big as your head, turning sunlight to food wherever they spread. Then back to the roots that reach down and branch out to anchor the plant that began as a sprout, to grow from the seed that Molly sowed. These are the bees that carry the pollen from flower to flower till petals have fallen, revealing small fruits on the vine green and strong that serves as a lifeline to move things along. From the leaves to the fruits to the roots that branch out to anchor the plant that began as a sprout, to grow from the seed that Molly sowed. This is the pumpkin, ripe and round, that came from a seed poked into the ground, nurtured from a sprout and a deep spreading root, shaded by leaves as it grew to a fruit, that got sliced and seasoned and baked in a pie and left on the table till feasting began. It was baked in a pan. I'm sorry, I said baked in a pie. Baked in a pan and left on the table till feasting began. These are the people all gathered in thanks for the earth and the sun, for the rain that plant drank, for the seed and the sprout, for the vine and the leaves, for the flowers that nourish the hard-working bees, and the wonderful pie that Molly made. American pie. There are more than 45 kinds of pumpkins. They come in many colors: red, gold, blue, white, but most are orange. The earliest pumpkins were grown by Native Americans more than 6,000 years ago. While it's true that the Pilgrims baked pumpkin for their first Thanksgiving, they didn't make pie. But you can. And like Molly, you can grow your own pumpkin pies. Or your own pie pumpkins. I put them in the wrong order. Pie pumpkins. All you need is sunshine, seeds, and a place to plant them. You also need room for their vines to spread out. Before planting, mix a bit of compost, well-rotted leaves or manure, into the soil. This provides food for the pumpkin plants. Sow 4 or 5 seeds in an area the size of a large pizza. When the seeds are about 6 inches tall, cut out the 2 smallest. The plants left in the garden will grow stronger. If you start a pumpkin inside, you can plant it outside in a garden or large pot. Cover bare soil with a layer of straw or dried grass and leaves to keep weeds from growing. This also helps keep the soil from drying out, and it will remind you to not plant other things there. After a few weeks, you'll see flowers. When pumpkins start forming, they look like tiny green balls below the flower. Pumpkins are ripe when they are a deep orange color. They are ready to pick when you can't poke your fingernail through the skin. It takes a sharp knife to cut through thick pumpkin stems, so ask an adult to help cut your pumpkins from the vine. Leave a couple of inches of stem attached to the fruit, then wipe off the dirt and store your pumpkin in a cool, dry area until you're ready to make pie. How to turn a pumpkin into pie. Be sure to have a grown-up help you. Roast the pumpkin, turn the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and cut a ripe pumpkin in half. Hint, it's easier to cut it from stem to the bottom. Scoop out the seeds and the stringy stuff inside. See how they set it to the side? Place the pumpkin halves open side down in a large baking dish. Add about 1/2 inch of water and put it in the oven for about 45 minutes. It's done when you can poke a fork through the skin. After the pumpkin cools, scrape the cooked fruit into a bowl and mash it up. A potato masher is perfect for this job. When you're ready to make the pie, turn the oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Make a pie crust or use a ready-made crust. To make the filling, mix all these ingredients in a large bowl. You need 2 cups of mashed pumpkin. You need 1 13-ounce can of evaporated milk, 2 eggs, half a cup of brown sugar, 1/2 cup granulated sugar, 1½ teaspoon cinnamon, and half a teaspoon of each of ground ginger, nutmeg, allspice, and cloves. Put the pie tin on the oven rack and pour the pumpkin mixture into the pie crust. If it gets a bit splashy, you can pour carefully and ease the rack back down into place. Bake at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes, then turn down the heat to 350 degrees and bake another 35 minutes or more. When the filling is set, the pie is done. To test, put in a clean knife. If it comes out gloopy, bake the pie longer. No bees, no pie. Pumpkin plants produce male flowers and female flowers. They depend on bees to move the pollen from the male flower to the female flower. Once female flowers have pollen, they can grow into pumpkins. The bees that carry pollen come in all sizes, from big fuzzy bumblebees to shiny emerald sweat bees. Without bees, we'd have no pie. So we have 2 flowers here. We have a male flower and a female flower, and you can see how they're different. You can look inside and you can see that they're different. And here are just some of the bees that you might see by your house. There's a squash bee, an eastern bumblebee, a sweat bee, a carpenter bee, a honey bee, and a longhorned bee. There are more kinds, but there's some of them. All right. Oh, we started with the end pages having all the seeds, and now we have all of the pumpkins. Thank you for listening. I hope maybe you decide to make your own pumpkin pie. You can also make pumpkin pie out of canned pumpkin. So if you don't want to get a pumpkin and do all the roasting, you could get a can of pumpkin and you could still follow the same directions. All right. Thanks.